two of the favorite songs of Sri Ramakrishna. The first song, I wasn't planning on speaking about it, but I'll just say a few things about it because we hear this song so many times. I would say probably the most popular Bengali song among devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. Almost everybody knows this song. And the only person that I know of who's qualified to sing this song is Sri Ramakrishna. Yeah. And we have to understand that there's a big difference between assuming that a song is something that refers to us, and understanding this song is something that we aspire to. So if we go through all these teachings about who is the religion of action and all of these things, and we get to this idea, I act as mother makes me act. Sri Ramakrishna says that after God realization, this is one's experience, and not even everybody after God realization, that even Holy Mother will not say, I speak as mother makes me speak. She spoke naturally. Every Thakur heard mother's voice. He felt that she was directly telling him what to do. But Ashtalya, he used to give that example that when they have this husking machine, and that as soon as little's there, another person pushes it in, so there's never any lack. This is how we felt mother kept telling him what to say and what to do and everything. So this is a unique thing. Maybe Ram Prasad also. But we can try to feel that we're acting as an instrument in the hands of God. But we can't say whatever we do is mother's will. And it's a travesty. Then we do all sorts of nonsense and say, don't blame me, it was mother's will. So we have to understand that the heart has to be 100% pure, and we have to be rid completely of this lower ego before we can even attempt to have that type of attitude. Then at best we can say we try to act according to God's will. Even Holy Mother used to pray. She used to pray, Mother, make my will one with your will. So even she didn't have that type of feeling that whatever I do is the will of the Divine Mother. This is really something that many God-realized souls won't be able to say even. This is something special with Sri Ramakrishna. And others, of course, we were watching this film with Ram Prasad. He also was very, very similar to Sri Ramakrishna. He was mad with the divine love and filled with mother. He could say that also. In fact, Ram Prasad is the closest that we have to Sri Ramakrishna, I feel. And Thakur always used to say that, Mother, you revealed yourself to Ram Prasad, why not to me? So he also felt that kind of kinship with Ram Prasad. So now we get to the main theme. This dub dub dub. Sri Ramakrishna used to give this teaching of dub dao. He used to say dive deeper, dub dao. He would say over and over again. There are many other songs also. There's a song to Mother Kali. It also has that same idea. It says, take the name of Kali and dive deep down the line into the heart's fathomless depths where many precious gem lies hid. Exactly the same idea. Same idea that we have here. Only the tradition of this song, this belongs to the vowel tradition. Last night we talked a little bit about that. Last night's song falls more within the Sufi tradition, and this song this morning falls within the vowel tradition. This Kubir is not Kabir, so we know that this he was a well-known writer at that time within this tradition that was the Vaishnava tradition that grew out of mostly this Chaitanya Dev tradition, but incorporated many other things. And at the time of Sri Ramakrishna, there were many of these groups that were kind of offshoot groups, were kind of a mixture of Vaishnava ideas and tantric practices. And we find many references in the Gospel of Swami Krishna to the Ghoshpara and Kartavaja, the Sahajiya. There are many different groups at that time. And even when Swami Krishna did his tantric sadhana, this was within this Shakta school, worship of the Divine Mother. But there's so much overlap that sometimes we can't distinguish that there'll be tantric practices within the Vaishnava tradition. So, for example, they would take this wine, karam, you call it karam, and that's also the Thakur found that as part of the tradition that the Brahmani was teaching him, the tantric school, but is also part of the Vaishnava tradition. So there's a lot of overlap, a lot of confusion. How some of these things, even tantric things, probably from Tibet, entered into Bengal. The whole tradition of Buddhist tradition really went from Bengal during the period of the Pal dynasty into Tibet and brought different things back. So everything's a mixture. All things got all mixed up, these different types of traditions. But Sri Ramakrishna had a very interesting connection with these groups, especially this Kartavaja, because of this Vaishnava Charan. Now, those who read the Gospel, you know that Thakur refers to him many, many times, that they had a type of mutual friendship and respect. Vaishnava Charan, of course, looked upon Sri Ramakrishna as a really rare soul, avatar, you can say, but Sri Ramakrishna liked him and respected him, and he was kind of the leader of this group. So we'll find so many references within in the Gospel of things that Vaishnava Charan said, even, and places that Vaishnava Charan took Sri Ramakrishna, because Thakur was curious about everything. Yeah, he wanted to meet all. He wanted to know how people worshipped all different types, even some of these groups where none of the others would have gone. That they all looked down very much upon some of these groups. Within the Vaishnava tradition, Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, you had highly educated scholarly people, the Goswamis and everything, and then you had very simple people, these Vairagis and others, that some people felt were really low-class people. Even Sri Ramakrishna at one time that he doubted that this Chaitanya Dev was anybody very special. And yes, these ordinary people, they set him up as an avatar. And then, of course, he went there, Navadip had all that experience, and afterwards had tremendous respect. But so it's even in Bengal, even in Thakur's time, here he grew up in a Vaishnava family, worshippers of Raghuveer, but knew very little about this Chaitanya Dev tradition. And interesting how we have different pockets and the way things work out. It wasn't until later that he really came into contact with this tradition. Anyhow, this is an offshoot, we can say, and mixed up with Sufi ideas and with tantric ideas and everything. And we give this kind of generic name of Bao, so it's the Bao tradition. We were also watching this Mona Manush yesterday with the Malvan Bakir. And these people were really outside the pale of society. They didn't observe caste, they didn't observe religious distinctions and everything. And some would be strictly within the Vaishnava tradition, other within Sufi tradition, some Muslim tradition, but they all lived together and got along. They were beyond all of these things. So it was a very fascinating religious spiritual movement that took place in Bengal and other parts of India, I'm sure, also. I don't know much about the Bao tradition. Is it outside of Bengal also, or mostly just Bengali tradition? No, we don't, nothing in South, anything like that. Yeah. South also, we have so many great saints that were almost considered like Shudra saints, right? That were a little bit outside of the pale of society, and that became worshipped as great saints and everything. Who were the Alvars?
was the Vishnu worship.
that Vishnu worshippers. But I think some of these groups were also, they weren't from that Brahmin tradition or anything, kind of outside of that tradition. So anyhow, we had this movement where tremendous amount of allegorical language is used, and this Karta Bhaja, Karta means the master or guru, and their reverence was more to the spiritual teacher, to the guru, than to any of the deities or anything else. And everything was symbolic, that the body can be thought of as the building or the abode. You know, we saw all these songs of Lama figures, so yeah. And everything was a direct experience, and everything was unconventional. They didn't care about observing caste or ritualistic worship or anything like that. They were really kind of mystics and free souls, but at the same time, some of this left-handed tantric stuff also entered into it. So it was a real, we can say, a real mixed bag of the Sufi tradition, Vaishnava tradition, Shakta, worshippers of Divine Mother, all of these things all kind of mixed up together. And mostly they worship this formless God dwelling within the heart, and this kind of Guru Bhakti. This was a very strong type of thing. They didn't care too much for the gods and goddesses. So this kind of deviated from the traditional Vaishnava tradition. In Bengal, the Vaishnava tradition is mostly Radha Krishna. Other parts, of course, say Gujarat and other places, it would be the Rukmini will take the place of Radha. There won't be much interest in Radha. So it kind of depends on different regions and areas. But anyhow, these vows, they would also wander and go from place to place. So this is how Sri Ramakrishna gives this beautiful example of the avatar. I remember one time I saw, just on the street, this little group shows up. And really, you don't know where they came from. They just kind of show up with this iktara, this ding, 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 and the little drum and everything, and they sing some songs and then they disappear. They kind of nomadic, wandering people, something like that. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say that a band of owls has come. They sang their song and then they'll go away, disappear. That means the avatar has come with his companions and everything. Where they came from, you don't know, and after they're gone, you wonder, oh, where were they, who were they, and everything. Yeah. So this is, he compares himself to this kind of group, like a party of owls. So this Kubir, we don't know much about him, if anything, but he was part of this tradition. The language is the language of the Vaishnava tradition, with the Vrindavan of the heart and everything like that. So this was an offshoot of the Chaitanya movement. But as I say, that they also brought in tantric things, so that men and women hooking up a little bit as Radha Krishna. Yeah, and drinking wine a little bit to get into a spiritual mood, things like that. So it was a real mixture of so many different things. So again, these tantric types of practices. So how did Sri Ramakrishna know so much about this group? Because he went. This, as I was just saying, he had a curiosity that whenever he heard about any religious movement or any religious teacher, that he was curious. He wanted to meet them, even with the Brahmos. And even if it was something that he didn't especially have any particular personal interest in, it was almost as if he knew that he came for the welfare of everybody. Yeah. That's why he was so curious about these English-speaking people. Yeah, we sometimes forget what culture shock it was for Sri Ramakrishna to go from Kamarpukur to Calcutta in those days. That he had never met these people, English-speaking, speaking Bengali people. I doubt if he met any Englishmen. Yeah, who come to his village maybe once or twice. There's some problem with the local police. Somebody had to come, but otherwise he had no knowledge of any of these things and was so curious. So he would always ask all of these questions. When this Pratap Majumdar went to, after he came back from England, he wanted to know what did the English people believe and everything like that. half curiosity and half knowing that he was giving teachings that would be spread out throughout the whole world. This is my conviction. That he felt the need to understand how different people with different spiritual paths they took, and to see how each one was really a legitimate path. So even these people that practice things that polite society would just look down upon completely, that he would also say, this is also a path. This is also a path, but he would say, don't take it. It's not a very clean path, so don't take this this path. Anyhow, so I want to get to this Vaishnava Charan, that he played an important role in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. He came to Sri Ramakrishna quite early, when the Brahmani was there and everything, so they had a long association. So anyhow, Sri Ramakrishna went with him on different occasions. Some of the women would approach him. See, they would approach men to see, have you found your partner? Huh? Have you found your Radha? Have you found your Krishna? Something like that. And these were all new things to him. Yeah. In his little village, these were kind of, even though the Baal traditions we find in the countryside and everything, it's not that every little village knew about it, and they kind of settled in the cities, the tantric types of movements and things. So sometimes they would test him, and he didn't mind being tested. Is he completely free from lust? Because there would be some type of temptation and everything. But he didn't know. He was so innocent. He half the time didn't realize what was going on. And he talked about one time that now they're all drinking a little wine. I think they'll sit for meditation. So I see they're up and singing and dancing. I was afraid they'd fall into the river. The Ganges side. Anyhow, the Vaishnava Charan was one of the pandits who came to Dakshineshwar when the Brahmani was there. Bhargavi Brahmani. She was the first one to recognize Sri Ramakrishna as, we can say an avatar, but at least in the beginning, as under the influence of divine madness. All of the others thought, even the family members, everybody thought, that he's a great special soul. It's great, but through too much of the sadhana, not sleeping, not eating, and everything, that he'd gone a little mad. That it was a real type of madness. This is how his marriage got arranged. Even his mother and brother, they thought that maybe if he's married and he has responsibilities, that mine will come down a little bit. So that's how they arranged the marriage and everything. So the Brahmani was facing all of these skeptical people. Yeah, you're saying he's an avatar and everything. We know him just as this Pagal Thakur, this mad priest who's at the temple here. That everyone likes him and respects him. Mathur Babu especially has some great fondness for him. He can do whatever he likes. But we don't see him as saying that he's like Krishna and Rama and everything. And she said, no, I'll prove it. And at that time, he had all of the signs, physical signs, that are written about in the Gaudiya Vaishnava literature. The two, Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, Rupa especially, they wrote all these scriptures on devotion and all the different signs and different physical changes that take place in the body when someone reaches these states. Thakur talks about all of these things. This bhava, prema, mahabhava, this mahabhava, and then this constant weeping, burning sensation, even blood coming out of the pores. All of these things, they were written about. And this Brahmani, she was very unusual. She was a master in two fields. All of the tantric literature. He had to go through all these, they say 64 different tantric traditions. I don't know exactly what that means. Nobody seems to know. But also knew all about this Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition also. So she said that she saw all of these different signs in the body of Sri Ramakrishna, physical signs that were seen in Radha and in Chaitanya Deva. This is that we have this connection between these three figures in many different ways. This idea of udipana, that something will trigger something. We have that tradition with Radha. She sees a peacock, automatically mind goes to Krishna with this peacock feather. Or she sees a dark rain cloud. Exactly the same with Chaitanya Deva, and exactly the same with Swami Krishna, only with him not limited to the Vaishnava tradition. So he sees the lion with his Madhurya, something like that, and go into samadhi, go into ecstasy. So she noted all of this and said, I'll prove by going through the scriptures and everything that he's also an avatar. So there were many who came, and she presented all of her arguments in front of everybody, referring to the scriptures, to the lives of Chaitanya Deva and everything. And yeah, Radha, when we look at this Radha Krishna play, we can say, that really, who was greater, Radha or Krishna? Everything is Radha. Really. That Sri Krishna, he's almost gets there in order to allow Radha to have this divine ecstasy and everything. She's the example of bhakti. And very, very interesting, the explanation for the birth of Chaitanya Deva. Does anybody know why he was born and why he had fair complexion?
Krishna wanted to experience the
yes,
love of
that Sri Krishna was envious of Radha's devotion. He didn't have that type of devotion, that she'll become completely lost to the world thinking of him. So she was envious of that. So they say that he wanted to be born to experience that. So he was born as a combination. So they say, Anta Krishna Bahir Gaura. So inside he's an incarnation of Krishna. Externally, he'll have all these attributes of Radha. That's why he has a fair complexion. Whereas Radha had the fair complexion and Krishna had the dark complexion. So inside Krishna, that means dark complexion, and Sri Krishna, of course. So that's how they explain the reason for the birth of Chaitanya Deva within this Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. So anyhow, they're all sitting around, they're all listening, they're giving their arguments, some in favor, some not in favor, and the Vaishnava Charan, he's listening to the Brahmani, and he didn't raise a single objection. He agreed with her on everything. And there are 19 different signs of Mahabhava that are written about, that were seen in the life of Radha and Chaitanya Deva. And she showed that all 19 were seen in the life of Sri Krishna. And his Vaishnava Charan concluded that, yes, so that Sri Krishna is this avatar. And really, there's another tradition, goes back to the Bhagavata Purana, that Sri Krishna is not an avatar, that he's the avatarin, that he's the source of all avatars. Yeah, we don't find this in other traditions. Usually he's considered one of the Dasha avatars. Yeah, but there's a section that talks about how many different avatars are there. First there are 10, then there are 24, then Asankhya, innumerable. And then it says, Krishna's tu bhavan swayam. But we don't count Krishna as one of them. He is the Lord himself. So we find that reference that, I don't remember if it was Vaishnava Charan himself, but one of them says, oh, you call him an avatar. That's not enough. He's the source of all avatars. That's this idea. Krishna tu bhagavan swayam. He is the Lord himself. So anyhow, from that time on, this is a very early period. I don't know when this will be. This will be 36, 56. This will be around 1860, something like that. I don't remember exactly. So at least 25-year relationship with his Vaishnava Charan. The other pundits came from all different places. He stayed in Calcutta. So Sri Ramakrishna had great respect for this tradition, even though Modern Bengalis, especially these Western educated people, they look down so much on this tradition. And it shows how liberal Sri Ramakrishna was. There's a nice section in the Great Master, Lila-Prasanga, where Swami Sharanandi, he says that we were all shocked to hear Sri Ramakrishna talk about this group because we looked down upon them as the lowest type of people that doing these immoral types of things. But Sri Ramakrishna, his attitude was different, and he said, this is quoting from Sri Ramakrishna, "Look, never harbor any hatred toward them. Know that theirs is also a path, although it is a dirty one. There are many doors to enter a house, the main gate, the back door, and the one for the sweepers to enter the house and clean the toilets. No matter which door people use to enter the house, they all reach the same destination. This doesn't mean that you should follow their ways or associate with them, but don't hate them." So it just shows how open-minded and liberal Sri Ramakrishna was with all of these different traditions. Okay, this is just a little background. The most important thing is, what do we mean by diving deep? You know, sometimes we hear these things and we don't even question it. Well, dive deep, okay, I know what that means. What does it mean to dive deep in spiritual life? So we have to have some sense, in order to follow these teachings, some sense of the real deeper type of significance with all of that. And we have to understand that floating on the surface won't get the job done. So one thing is not just diving, but going to the right depths. So this is one of the ideas, diving deep, that we have to go deeply within, we have to become immersed. So that really means not just diving in and coming back up, but kind of remaining there. You remember the incident that took place that Sri Ramakrishna went once to the Brahma Samaj. And Keshav probably got inspired by seeing Sri Ramakrishna. And he started saying, yes, dive deep into the ocean. And then Thakur teased him afterwards. He said, you telling them all to dive deep, what about them? That meant on the other side of the screen, all the women, all the wives were sitting there. Yeah, what will happen to them if you dive deep? You'll have to dive and then come back up. And then finish your work, then dive again, then come back up. But for his young disciples, the monastic disciples especially, he wanted this to really indicate fully immersing oneself and something with great intensity, doing our spiritual life with great intensity, and remaining immersed somehow. And this idea, where are we diving? We're diving deep within. Now, what does that mean? To go beneath the surface of the mind. And what are the gems that we find at the bottom? These are the spiritual treasures that we'll get, that ecstasy and everything. So, we have a little bit of a different idea here. Thakur talks about the salt dal. He goes, when the salt dal gets to the bottom, and then it becomes one with the whole ocean. The salt. But this is a little bit different. This is more devotional path. It's not getting the bottom doesn't mean you're Vikalpa Samadhi or anything like that. It means really getting to this state of divine ecstasy, we can say. This is that whole realm of bhava. When we read about Thakur going into this ecstasy, they use this term bhava or bhava samadhi. It's not our Raja Yoga samadhi. It's not that the mind is perfectly blank and empty and everything. That is filled with divine emotions and love and visions and all sorts of other things. So this, again, like we saw last night, is a combination of very deep Advaitic ideas that the divine treasure is within as our very own self, but at the same time that as a devotee that there's some separation. I can go to the bottom, I can have that experience. I won't disappear and merge and become one, but there'll be some state of union, and that this Vrindavan of the heart, that this this lila, this divine play is going on. Also, we get a lot of different things all coming in here together. Did I read the translation? Oh no, everybody knows the translation. You have it. The translation. Oh, I have it someplace. Okay. Dive deep. This is the translation we find in the Gospel. Dive deep, O mind. Dive deep in the ocean of God's beauty. The Rubsagare. So this Rup, it means form. It means beauty. Here, this it's a curious expression. This is Rubsagare. It's an ocean of this means that we're not looking at this Nirguna Brahman as this infinite absolute consciousness, but as some source of joy and ecstasy and beauty. Okay? If you descend to the uttermost depths, there you will find the gem of love. Go seek, O mind, go seek Vrindavan in your heart. So again, part of the Vaishnava tradition, we can equally say that find the abode of the Divine Mother within the heart. It's not limited or restricted to anything. They were liberal people from that point of view. They weren't any type bigoted people. You had to worship this type of way. Light up, O mind, light up true wisdom's shining lamp, and let it burn with steady flame unceasingly within your heart. Who is it that steers your boat across the solid earth? It is your Guru. So this is the Karta. It is your Guru, says Guru. Meditate on his holy feet. So Guru for them is kind of almost like avatar, is the human embodiment of the divine. So what does it mean, this idea of diving deep? So it means we immerse ourselves in something. Even in our work, if we're a scientist or something, we want to get something done, we have to immerse ourselves in it. We have to really fully become identified with what we're doing. Forget everything else. There's real type of immersion. It can be with a job, reading a book, a relationship, it can be anything. Whole mind is fixed on the task at hand, and there's some type of ekagrata that comes, one-pointedness, so that we forget everything else. So this is part of that idea. And the opposite of floating on the surface, where part of the body is above water, part is below water. That we have to be fully immersed and fully focused on everything. And then, when we go beneath the surface, then we forget everything above. We don't see anything. We don't see the clouds or the sky or anything. We see only water. The deeper we go, the less light we even see. When we get to the bottom, then it's completely dark. And then we have that other song, Nibir Antarema. What is it? Yeah. And then darkness, mother. Like formless beauty sparkles. So then we get this curious idea that formless, the beautiful, shining form of the formless deity. It's really fantastic. It's such a poetical way of putting this idea that there's nothing dry about this experience of the Absolute. That it'll be joyful and can manifest with all types of formless beauty. And again, very similar to the Sufi idea, that worshiping God as the beloved and yet formless. There's more a feeling of the heart. Then the other thing is, when we go to the seashore, of course you don't live near the seashore here. We were talking about that, right in the middle of the country. But if you go to the ocean, you'll see that older people, they'll wade in a little bit. Very old people, they'll splash some water and everything. Little kids, they'll just dive right in. Yeah. So a little bit of this is not knowing exactly where we're going, with the faith that we're being directed by the Guru in the right path, without looking in one direction or the other too much, we dive. We take that dive. That means that we have to have tremendous faith. Yeah, because we're going into the unknown. We don't know what we'll get if we really do this type of immersion. Will we go mad? You remember the Kalpataru Day? Yesterday I talked a little bit about this Ramla, but you remember it's by Kuntana Sanya, that he had the constant vision of Swami Krishna. Then at the end he says that what a fool I was to ask for it to be removed. At most I might have gone mad. So we also have to feel that way. At most, what will happen? Yeah. That have that conviction that unless we at least try, then life will be okay, it'll be ordinary type of life, but we won't get the gems. At least take a chance. So we'll have some people that they may be told, look, it's so deep to get the gems that you may not be able to come back even. They say, I'll take a chance. That I don't care for anything else, this is what I want. So this is also a little bit of that idea that we're willing to take a risk. That it may mean that, and don't take all of this too seriously. It may mean that our job will suffer a little bit, and that we'll lose some of our friends and things like that. But if we really want to have that idea, this life is not to be wasted. There's a chance. What are the odds? Out of 100,000 kites, but only one may break free. Well, maybe I'll be that one. Because it won't happen unless we dive deep. So this we know. We can lead a very good life, a good spiritual life. Mother will come at the very end, we'll get liberation. But if we want now, this very moment to have it, then we have to be a little bit mad. My day, my pago gore. The Thakur like that song also. Oh, Mother, make me mad with love for thee. Almost every time Sri Ramakrishna sings this song, he mentions the story we told yesterday, the incident with Swamiji, if you're a fly and everything. Yeah. So Sri Ramakrishna is trying to tell him, no, don't worry, that you think there's a chance that you'll die. If you really dive deep, you won't. This is the nectar of immortality. So this metaphor of actually diving into water, it means that we have a little bit of faith, a little fearlessness to take the plunge. Because we're going to the unknown. We don't know what we're getting ourselves in for a little bit. And we don't worry too much about the negative consequences. So there's a tremendous amount of faith, vishwas. This is a term that Sri Ramakrishna uses very often. That he says that this is, if we have faith, we have everything. If we have the vishwas, he says, if we have that, we have everything. That it's not simply a set of beliefs or anything like that. It means conviction, that we're convinced, absolutely convinced of that. So we can have that conviction, and what is it based on? It's based on Guru, there's a holy company, but mostly Thakur himself and Holy Mother. And what we see that they're not telling us something that they haven't experienced. And a whole tradition, all of these different saints and the vowels and all the different traditions and everything, they gave up everything. They gave up their standing in society and everything. Look at Mirabai, what she gave up, how she was just scorned and everything for her belief. Sri Krishna is my real husband. They were all willing to do that. That they didn't care about what society said or anything like that. Again, don't take this too seriously. Don't go too far with all of this. Okay, I'm going to skip a lot of things, but what I want to get to is, are there any special spiritual practices that we can try to follow that will especially bring in this idea of intensity. Now, most of our spiritual practice is sensible. It's very sensible that gradually we increase our devotion and everything. But that's not exactly what's meant by diving deep. And we also have to remember that Sri Ramakrishna gave these teachings to specific people at a specific time, and for all of us. And we have to know to what degree we can accept these teachings and to what degree we can try to follow them. So we have to tone these things down a little bit. And the householder who still has family responsibilities, work responsibilities, has to tone it down even more. But even for us, we don't have any household responsibilities or anything. We know that we can't do this the way that even the direct disciples did. That we know, so diving deep, it may mean that you spend day after day in meditation. We can't do that. We know that we're sensible people, so we do it as far as possible. When we look at what took place in Bharanagamat, the Swamiji says in one place that seeing the tapasya, the austerities that we practice, demons themselves would have run away. That sometimes, he said, we would get up, we would sit for meditation at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we wouldn't end our meditation until 5 in the afternoon. And only because Shashi, Swami Atmajnanananda, would forcibly shake us and said, no, you have to come, you have to eat something. Otherwise they were lost, they were so immersed. This is what it means to dive deep. And then we can't do it. So we have to temper everything and know to what extent we can do all of these things. And for Sri Ramakrishna, these were daily occurrences. See, this diving deep is also that entering into that bhava state. And Sri Ramakrishna would often talk about the fish. One way to understand this, look at the joy of the fish that's let out of the fish bowl and put into the Ganga. House from around with such joy and everything. So to like the bird flying in the sky. So anyhow, this diving deep will involve, of course, meditation. That and spending enough time in meditation that we allow the mind to go deeper and deeper. Because we sit for meditation, the mind will float on the surface for a long time. So part of diving deep, if we really want to do it, means at least from time to time. Right? Thakur said every once in a while go into solitude. At least from time to time to really try to immerse ourselves in spiritual practice. Immerse ourselves in sadhana. The spiritual life means sadhana. It means spiritual practice. It doesn't mean having a set of beliefs. It doesn't mean having reverence for a great spiritual figure. That's part of it, of course. But if we say we're leading a spiritual life, we have to have a practice. So this sadhana is the most important thing, and it should be done with tremendous sincerity. We were talking about sincerity this morning. That means that deep within our heart, that this is the most important thing, and we're not going to do it haphazardly, we're not going to do it mechanically, that each time we sit for meditation, we're going to think that this is my one opportunity to have some type of experience. That we don't know what day it'll happen, it could happen any day, that we have to approach it that way, that we want to be not just regular in our meditation, but serious about or meditation. So a lot of this will also involve overcoming the obstacles to meditation and spiritual practice. And one of the obstacles is this physical body. That we have to look after it, we have to make sure it's healthy, we have to be able to sit for a long time in meditation, That is one of the obstacles. Other, of course, is the mind. This is the main thing. Even when we say the body, we mean the mind. That's how the mind reacts to the physical body and everything. So, how do we deal with these things? Now, because of this particular topic, we're going to get a lot of extreme types of teachings. Very often Thakur will say that he's talking about, or talking to devotees who are really fit for the highest type of teaching. Say this advice to Ishan. You all know that chapter in the Gospel, advice to Ishan. Ishan gets a terrible scolding, horrible scolding, that we shudder to think what would happen if he said these things to us. Because as Ishan, he wanted to do this Purushtana of the Gayatri Mantra, and Thakur told him many times, this Vedic tradition is not for today, to do something with the Divine Mother, and he didn't listen to him. Now, but Swami Krishna loved this Ishan, he was a great devotee, and Thakur knew that coming towards the end of his life, that he could do these things. So he's really telling him, be mad with love of God. Don't worry about all the ritualistic things, be mad. He says, to justify your name, Ishan, because Shiva was also mad, that type of madness. So, we can't do that. Yeah, we don't want to become mad or anything. So we have to understand that these teachings are very, very extreme types of teachings. Yeah. So for us, we'll dive a little bit deeper each day and build up our lung capacity. But if we want to at least get a glimpse of what's meant by diving deep, then we forget about this body. We, even among the direct disciples, will find a range here. Say Sri Ramakrishna. Anything's wrong, he'll call the doctor. That was his play. He had no attachment to the body whatsoever. That was part of his play. But we'll have some Swamiji. How many doctors he went to in this country? Magnetic healers and all sorts of other things. Then we'll get someone like Swami Atmajnanananda, that he wouldn't take medicine at all. He used to say this, Janavi Osadam, what is it? Narayana there's an expression I carry over now. Osadam Janavi Toyam, Vaidyo Narayana Hari. Yeah, so the Ganges water will be my medicine, and the Lord himself my doctor. So he wouldn't go to doctors, he wouldn't take regular medicine like that. Whatever happens to the body happens, I won't pay any attention to the body. That's the extreme form. We have to do something in between. But the more we can forget this body and all of that, and practice titiksha. This is a very wonderful thing, that don't let the mind get too outward going and always worrying about your physical health and everything. Remember that I don't want you to pay too much attention to all of this. You all should take care of your health. It's very important to have good health for family and for job and everything like that. But the stage will come in life. The stage will come in life when we say that, why let my mind worry about this body? Let the mind get immersed in God. So this is basically this problem of the body in the external world. Let the world, we've been worrying about it long enough, there are other people to worry about it, it will take care of itself. And then this mind. The mind will have ups and downs, we'll have good days, bad days. I'm not going to let it affect me. Yeah. Even with the mind, we have to practice this type of titiksha. Then, so what are the things that we really need to do to get in this mood, this really feel the need to dive deep? Number one thing is holy company. Now, when we talk about holy company, very often we'll say that we don't simply mean that sadhus and everything, but that everyone is holy company. You all get together, that's keeping holy company. Now, for this particular topic, it has to be some all-renouncing monk. And especially someone who's a little bit mad for God. So everything will be extreme with these teachings. We have to tone them down for our own practice, but everything will be a little extreme. But look at the advantage that the direct disciples had by seeing the life of Swami Krishna. Seeing someone who was mad for God. When we have our what we call a holy company, this will also be a tremendous example for us and inspiration for us and everything. We see other devotees as helpful for us. We learn from other devotees. But when we see someone who has renounced everything, and we see someone who really is experiencing the joy of realization. So there's something very, very special about that. And we see someone who's mad for God and forgets everything else. And then we have to catch a little bit of that. So, this is what I mentioned before. That about diving deep, he said to Keshav. Keshav said, "O Lord, grant us that we may dive into the river of divine love and go straight to the ocean of Satchidananda." The ladies were seated behind the screen. I said to Keshav, "How can you dive once for all?" Pointing to the ladies, I said, "Then what would happen to them? Every now and then you must return to dry land. You must dive and rise alternately." Keshav and the others left. He knew that the Brahmo devotees were not the ones to follow his teachings. He knew that. He knew that's why, even after they came, the Brahmos came, other people came, still he would go up to the roof. And he would say, "Mother, that my ears are burning by listening to the talk of worldly people. I'm longing to have someone who can accept my words." And then Rakal came, Narendra came, and the others came. They were the ones. So most of this is really for them, and some of the householder devotees, we can't compare ourselves to them. They were also companions in his Leela. They were also Antarangas. Yeah. And the Balaram Ghosh. Yeah. Nag Mahashaya. So, householder, but more of a monk than a householder, anything. And we also have to understand that our capacity to experience these spiritual moods is nothing compared to these great. Even Swamiji himself, Swamiji Sri Ramakrishna considered him to be the biggest container. He used that word adha. He would talk about the different size containers. That some were like little cups, some were pitchers. And he was like the big cistern, the huge adha. When Thakur was in Kashipur, and one day he gave this Ram mantra to Swamiji, and Swamiji was repeating that, became practically mad, and almost running around in circles repeating this, and they all went to Swamiji, "What did you do to him?" Acting like a madman and everything, and yelling in a loud voice, saying Ram, Ram, Ram in a loud voice. And then Sri Ramakrishna, he was very happy. And then he said, "You see, I passed 12 long years in that state you were experiencing for one night, and you can hardly bear it." He told Swamiji that. So, if Swamiji is a small container compared to Sri Ramakrishna, then what are the other disciples and what are we? Even, see, these divine emotions, we have no idea. We want to have the highest ecstasy. We would be gone in a second. Yeah. Sri Ramakrishna says this Mahabharata is only for these avatars. And maybe Ishvara Kotis and everything. When Swamiji went to Amarnath, he had such an intense experience seeing the Shiva Lingam there that he had the heart. There was some type of expansion of heart and some blood clot in his eye. Physical things took place because the intensity of that experience was so great. And Swamiji, according to Sri Ramakrishna, was the largest container as we can imagine. So we have to understand that we won't be able to have those types of experiences. So diving deep for us, it doesn't matter. It also doesn't matter. Now another nice illustration Thakur gives, that he says, you want to touch the Ganges, you don't have to go all the way to Ganga Sagar and to or from Gangotri to Ganga Sagar. Anywhere you touch it is enough. So we have that experience, it's enough. We won't have be able to have the fullness of all these types of bhavas that they had, the others. So we'll have the same list that we always know about: holy company, solitude, prayer, all of these things. But they have to be somehow intensified. So the holy company, we have solitude. Now going into solitude has many different types of advantages. First, practical advantage is that we can forget about everything else. Let other people worry about taking care of daily chores, this and that. We have time to focus completely. But we can also think very deeply about the nature of our own self-identification. Now, I say this because if we think about this idea of body consciousness, we all know that we have some identification with this physical body. Now, why is that identification with the physical body so strong? I have a theory. What do you think?
Just getting ego mirrored.
Because of the other person. Because you have no way of seeing me other than seeing this physical presence here. Huh? So it's not so much that I'm so much identified. Half the time I'm not looking at my body. I don't see my face. You see my hands a little, but we're so convinced that the other person is seeing me as a person, as the physical presence here, that we think of ourselves that way. Whereas if we go into solitude and spend a long time in solitude, we reverse. We start thinking of ourselves from inside out rather than from outside in, because the gaze. This is one of the teachings of existential philosophy. The gaze of the other person turns us into an object. The gaze of the other person objectifies us. So it's not just that we automatically do it. If we live alone for a long time, then we start to experience ourselves as that consciousness in which the whole world presents itself, to which it presents itself. I practiced this solitude for a long time. Not absolute solitude, no. But traveling in India, living in India, I lived alone for 1 year when I was a graduate student. I get a little place of my own. And I did an experiment with myself that I didn't keep any mirror in. I just had 2 small rooms. So I never saw my face. Every once in a while I'd go and get a shave for the barber, but I didn't see my face. And most of the time I was alone, so I didn't talk to people too much. And then even when I moved back to the United States, and I lived alone and spent a lot of time by myself. And solitude is something that it becomes a little bit addictive. Not everybody likes it. Some people, they'll be bored and lonely, but I found that I couldn't wait to get back. I had to go to class, but I couldn't wait to get back. I'd shut the door, I'd lock it, I'd take the phone off the hook, and then, alone, all by myself. And Thakur Ma Swamiji there with me, and could spend my time just nicely, not thinking about anything else. So this solitude is our chance to experience ourselves as we really are, as the real self, that consciousness in which everything exists, and the tremendous type of freedom that comes from that. So yeah, I was talking about Ishan. Somebody addressed these. And so anyhow, holy company, solitude, prayer. And then again, prayer, the whole question of intensity. Do we pray with our whole heart, or we just repeat some phrase over and over again? The best prayer is not a formula. The best prayer is not any Sanskrit verse or anything like that. The best prayer is just from the heart. And what was Thakur's prayer? Mother, reveal yourself to me. We can pray for other people also, but this is that type of diving deep. And then I don't care for anything. You only reveal yourself to me. This type of idea. How much time do we have? 2:46. I have a long thing about this Ishan. It's very beautiful. You should all read that. I won't go through all of it, but you should all read that chapter, Advice to Ishan. I'll read some of this. He says to him, how long must a man continue his sandhya? This is everyone who takes sacred thread. It's a very orthodox type of thing. As long as he has not developed love for the lotus feet of God, as long as he does not shed tears and his hair does not stand on end when he repeats God's name. Then he said, the need for exertion. You cannot achieve anything by moving at such a slow pace. You need stern renunciation. You seem to have no strength, no grit. You are as mushy as flattened rice soaked in milk. Be up and doing, gird your loins. Where's Aditi? It's squishy. Huh? Yeah, that's something very squishy. Yeah, we don't want to be like that. Yeah. Then renunciation, desire. You ask me why you don't feel stern renunciation. There is a reason for it. You have desires and tendencies within you. In our part of the country, I have seen peasants bringing water into their paddy fields. The fields have low ridges on all sides to prevent the water from leaking out. But these are made of mud and often have holes here and there. The peasants work themselves to death to bring the water, which however leaks out through the holes. Desires are the holes. You practice japa and austerities, no doubt, but they all leak out through the holes of your desires. Now remember, Thakur is in a state of ecstasy. He's not in the ordinary consciousness when he's talking to Isha. Then he says, the mind is dispersed. Part of it is gone to Dhaka, part to Delhi, another part to Kuch Bihar. The mind is to be gathered in. It must be concentrated on one object. If you want 16 annas worth of cloth, then you have to pay the merchant the full 16 annas. Yoga is not possible if there's the slightest obstacle. If there's a tiny break in the telegraph wire, then the news cannot be transmitted. Then, see, he goes through all the yogas, really, bhakti yoga, karma yoga. You are no doubt in the world. What if you are? You must surrender the fruit of your action to God. You must not seek any result for yourself, but mark one thing. The desire for bhakti cannot be called a desire. You may desire bhakti and pray for it. Practice the tamasa bhakti and force your demand upon the Divine Mother. Now, when it came to karma yoga, we find that Sri Ramakrishna is more often telling people that not do all of your actions as worship and offering to God and everything. Pray that they'll become less and less so that you can really dive deep. So we find that emphasis. This Ishan was quite elderly at the time. Arbitration and leadership, how trifling these are. Charity and doing good to others. You have had enough of these. He was a very, very charitable person. Swamiji says, equally as charitable as Vidyasara, who was considered to be the ultimate standard in those days. Those who are to devote themselves to such things belong to a different class. Now the time is right for you to devote your mind to the lotus feet of God. Be mad with love of God. That people know that Ishan has gone mad and cannot perform worldly duties anymore. Then people will no longer come to you for leadership and arbitration. Throw aside the kosha kushi, these are articles of worship, and justify your name of Ishan, the all-renouncing Shiva. So part of this is Vairagya. And this Vairagya, it has to come. We can't force it too much. But this Vairagya really means tremendous longing for God. We emphasize the negative too much sometimes, the dispassion for the world. Not that we hate the world or anything, but we'll see it as just something that's either an obstacle or a diversion. That we want to fix the mind on God, and the mind keeps going towards the world. So we try to intensify that feeling of dispassion. Now there are different ways of doing it. Sri Ramakrishna, he'll give some terrible examples, frightening examples that we hesitate to even mention. Yeah, and he has one story that has two versions to it. I'll give the more palatable version. We know this story that the disciple, the Guru says to the disciple that no one is your own, God alone is your very own. And he says, but my parents love me so much, my wife, children, everybody loves me so much. And he says, oh yeah, really? We'll do a test. And he says, I'm going to give you this pill. You'll swallow this pill. By the time you get home, you'll go into a kind of a coma state. Everybody will think that you're dead, but you'll be able to hear everything.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he does that, and they're all weeping and wailing. Oh, mother, my child has died, this and that. And then they knock on the door, and then Guru comes in the form of some type of fakir, some holy man who knows some tricks and things. So he says, what happened? They say, son has just died. And he said, oh, I know a way of bringing him back to life. I have a medicine I can give, bring him back to life. And they're all so happy. And there's but one thing. One person also has to take it, and that person will die. And he says, I see so many of you love him so much that I'm sure one of you will be very happy to do it. So one by one, he says, oh, mother is here, and she says, I would do anything for my child, but you see, I have other children also, and my husband to look after and everything. So she says no. Then one by one, they all say no. Nobody says a thing. By that time, this wears off. And he says, he looks at them and he says, oh, you rascal. And then he says, Guru, you were right, that no one is our very own except God. Now, I'll talk about this tonight, so I won't say too much, but of course we have the other side. Everyone is our own. But anyhow, this is just to get that type of renunciation, that he tells this type of story. We know that people do love us and care for us, but just to impress on the mind of the disciple. So, Thakur, he'll say, when this Vairagya comes, then this world, it looks like a burning forest fire. And our own relatives are like venomous black cobras. And we want to run away and escape. These are only for monks. But this Vairagya, we all have to have a little bit of it. Even the householders have to have a little bit of this feeling that the world has lost its taste for me. I don't care so much for these old pleasures, and we find that our friends they don't care for us much anymore. That, oh, you're not any fun. You used to like to go to parties, and so everything changes a little bit. So we all have to have that a little bit, this Vairagya. And this Vairagya always has to be accompanied with this tremendous longing for realization. So this Anuraga and Vairagya, they have to go hand in hand. Now, one last thing, I'll stop with this. And this is one of the teachings that we don't talk about very much, but Sri Ramakrishna says in a couple of different places, one should constantly remember death. So if we want to have some intensity in our spiritual life, we have to remind ourselves that one day will be the last day. And that this life will just go by. That when we think about how long we'll live, everybody wants to lead a long life. When we get to the last day, how much difference will it make? Whether it was 50 years, 75 years, 100 years. Of course, family people, it's different. You get to see children grow up and everything. For months, for us, it doesn't make much difference, really. That when the last day comes, it comes. And when we think about this time, when we think about this constant flow of time, this is really what's meant by Anitya. That this life is flowing by, and that if we're not careful, it'll be the end of the life, and we'll say, what did I do? I wasted my life. So there's one technique when we sit for meditation to feel how would we meditate if this were the last day of our lives. There's a story from one of the Puranas. I don't know the details of it, but someone prayed very sincerely to the Lord, and Narayana, he appeared before him, and he said, please ask a boon. And he said, I want to know when will be the last day of my life. And he says, my child, today is the last day of your life. And he said, oh, okay. And he sat, went very deep in meditation and had realization. So this is one technique. Swamiji says, there's a verse, I don't remember it. There's a Sanskrit verse that says, when you call on the Lord, when you do your spiritual practices, feel as if Yama is holding your head by the tuft of hair, ready to pull you at any moment. Feel like that. Then there'll be some intent. Otherwise, we sit for meditation, we're thinking about cooking the next meal, what we have to do. But if we know that's the last moment. So these are little things that we can do just to intensify. This diving deep means intensifying for spiritual life. We have to gradually, we can't just plunge in. Very few people can do it, even monks, very few can do it, but gradually intensify, so that when we do our spiritual practice, we're able to forget about this world. We're able to say that this is really the aim of life, I don't want to waste it, that this is what Sri Ramakrishna is telling us, that the gems are there, and they're within us. They're our own property. That not we're looking for some other place within the heart, that divine play of the Lord is there within the heart. Now, one other thing I'll mention, and that is getting immersed in the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. To me, this solves every possible problem in spiritual life, and this allows us to really feel that this lila is divine play is going on even now. And I'm saying these things because I was a little bit mad when I was younger. I tried all of these things. That when I lived alone, that I would spend hours reading the Gospel of Sri Krishna. Yeah, literally every night, at least an hour, I would read. And when I would sit for meditation, I would feel as if I were sitting in Thakur's room. Yeah, not just imagination, and not that I'm picturing it in my heart, but my very room, I would feel like when I would hear the street traffic, it would seem like the noise of the Ganga and everything. Yeah, so to get immersed in this lila, and to feel that now the play is going on. If I could only take a trip to go to Thakur's room, that I could go to his room and he's there, and all the direct disciples are there and everything. To feel this nitya lila, this divine play is going on eternally. And all I have to do is immerse the mind in meditation, and I'm there. So we sit for meditation, we feel that we're sitting in the presence of Sri Ramakrishna. Holy Mother is there, direct disciples are there. This will also help intensify our spiritual life. So anyhow, these are all different types of techniques that we have, so that we don't do our spiritual practice just mechanically, that we keep trying to make it more and more intense, because the problem is that after many, many years of spiritual life, that the tendency is there to just slide a little bit. And we have to try to do the opposite. We have to keep fanning the flames. Otherwise they'll go out. We have to keep fanning the flames, and we do it with all of these different types of techniques. So one of these very nice ones is this immersing the mind in the thought of the divine play of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, and reading the Gospel. For me, that's why M wrote it that way. That's why there's so many descriptions of what direction he's facing, who's in the room, all of these different things, so that we can do that. So anyhow, a lot of different things we can do. Get up early in the morning, give up some of our sleep, be a little bit too tired. If we're serious, if we want to do that. get an extra hour of meditation, and feel sleepy throughout the day, sacrifice if you need to. If we want to, if we feel that we've reached that point, and we'll find that life becomes very joyful, and that we feel we're leading the life that we're meant to lead. And it's very important that at the end of life we don't look back with regret. Oh, I could have done more. I could have done more. If we can say, I tried my best. Everything is up to Thakur's will, Mother's will, then I leave it in their hands. But I was sincere. So that's the main thing. Okay, let me stop here then. We have time for questions.